On a warm autumn afternoon in 2019, 20 years, Emily Carter packed her silver four-wheel drive outside her apartment in Brisbane. Nothing about that day seemed unusual. She told her friends she needed a break, a chance to clear her head. Australia's vast outback had always fascinated her. The endless red earth, the lonely highways, the feeling that you could drive for hours without seeing another soul. For Emily, it sounded like freedom. For everyone else, it would become the beginning of a nightmare, because 3 days later, Emily would vanish without a trace. No phone calls, no messages, no confirmed sightings. Just an abandoned vehicle found hundreds of kilometers from where she was supposed to be. What happened to Emily Carter? Did she become lost in one of the harshest environments on Earth? Did somebody cross her path? Or is there another explanation entirely? To understand the mystery, we need to start at the beginning. Emily wasn't an adventurer, at least not in the way people imagine. She worked a normal office job. She lived a fairly ordinary life. Friends described her as organized, intelligent, and careful. She planned everything. If she was running 10 minutes late, she'd text someone. That's why her disappearance shocked everyone who knew her. Nothing about it matched her personality. A week before leaving Brisbane, Emily spent hours researching routes online. She wanted to explore parts of Western Queensland, not the tourist hotspots. The quieter roads, the places most travelers never see. According to her search history, she had mapped several possible routes through remote regions. She booked accommodation for the first night. She checked weather reports. She even arranged for a neighbor to collect a parcel arriving while she was away. Everything suggested she intended to come back. On the morning of her departure, she stopped at a service station on the outskirts of Brisbane. Security cameras captured her buying water, snacks, and fuel. Investigators reviewed the footage hundreds of times. Emily appeared relaxed. She smiled at the cashier. At approximately 10:15 a.m., she drove west, away from Brisbane, away from the coast, and slowly into Australia's interior. For the first day, everything appeared normal. Her bank card was used several times. Fuel purchases, food purchases, a motel payment. Phone records showed brief conversations with friends. One friend later recalled Emily sounding excited. She talked about the landscape, the huge open skies, the endless roads stretching toward the horizon. But things began changing on the second day, subtly at first, then dramatically. According to her planned itinerary, she should have continued toward a small rural town, but she never arrived. Investigators later discovered something strange. Her vehicle's movements didn't match her planned route. Instead of following the highway, she appeared to have taken a series of remote roads, leading deeper into isolated country. Why? Nobody knows. By mid-afternoon, her phone connected to a remote mobile tower, then another, then another. Each signal placed her farther from populated areas, farther from help. At 6:47 p.m., she sent her final confirmed text message. Found an interesting track. Might explore a bit before heading back tomorrow. It was a short message. Nothing alarming, nothing unusual. Her friend replied a few minutes later. No response ever came back. The next morning, Emily failed to check in with her family. At first, nobody worried. Mobile reception was unreliable in remote Australia. It wasn't unusual for messages to be delayed. Hours passed. Then an entire day. Still nothing. Calls went straight to voicemail. Texts remained unanswered. Family members became concerned. Friends started contacting one another. Then, 48 hours later, police received the report that would trigger one of the most baffling missing person investigations in recent Australian history. At first, officers believed there was a simple explanation. Perhaps her vehicle had broken down. Perhaps she was stranded somewhere without reception. But when investigators began retracing her journey, they uncovered something deeply troubling. Emily's vehicle wasn't where it should have been. In fact, it wasn't anywhere near her planned route. Search teams eventually located Emily's vehicle beside a remote dirt track deep in the Queensland Outback. It was one of the most isolated locations investigators had seen. The driver's door was closed. The vehicle appeared undamaged. There were no signs of an accident, no evidence of a mechanical failure, and yet Emily herself was nowhere to be found. Then investigators looked inside the vehicle. What they found made the mystery even stranger. Her wallet was still there. So were her travel supplies. Several bottles of water remained untouched. The vehicle's keys were still inside. For investigators, that detail was difficult to ignore. If Emily intended to continue traveling, why leave her keys behind? Then came another disturbing discovery. Her phone was missing. Everything needed for survival remained in the vehicle. Everything except the one item that could reveal where she went. With no sign of Emily, authorities launched a large-scale search operation. Helicopters scanned vast stretches of wilderness. Volunteers walked kilometer after kilometer beneath the brutal Australian sun. The conditions were unforgiving. But despite all the resources, all the manpower, and all the effort, then, nearly 3 weeks into the search, investigators finally found something. A search volunteer noticed something glinting in the dust. It was a necklace. Emily's family recognized it immediately. She wore it almost every day. The discovery should have answered question. Instead, it created even more. The necklace wasn't found near the vehicle. It was located nearly 8 kilometers away. And there was one major problem. There were no footprints leading to the necklace. No discarded clothing. No campsite. No evidence explaining how the necklace arrived there. Investigators started considering a possibility they had hoped to avoid. Police began re-examining every detail of Emily's life. They analyzed her phone records, emails, and online activity. Then they discovered something unexpected. Several days before leaving Brisbane, Emily had searched for abandoned settlements and forgotten tracks, places rarely visited by tourists, places hidden deep within the Australian interior. Then another witness came forward. He worked at an outdoor equipment store. According to the employee, Emily asked several unusual questions. She wasn't asking about tourist attractions. She wanted information about old tracks that most travelers no longer used. Then investigators noticed something remarkable. The locations Emily had researched were surprisingly close to where her vehicle was discovered. For weeks, police believed Emily accidentally ended up there. Now they were beginning to wonder if she intended to go there all along. But if that was true, investigators interviewed everyone who knew Emily. They all told a similar story. No one had ever heard Emily mention that remote destination. Nobody knew why she suddenly became interested in forgotten tracks. One question continued to haunt the investigation. Was someone directing her toward that place? Or was she following a secret known only to her? Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Despite one of the largest search operations ever mounted in the region, Emily was never found. Without new evidence, the investigation slowly lost momentum. The files remained open, but the answers never came. Over the years, countless theories emerged: an accident, a voluntary disappearance, or something far more sinister. Perhaps the Outback kept it secret, or perhaps the truth is still waiting to be discovered. Some mysteries are solved, others become legends whispered across generations. This story may be fictional, but the Australian Outback is very real, and every year, its vast wilderness challenges even the most experienced travelers. If you enjoyed this mystery, subscribe for more Outback horror tales and tell us in the comments, what do you think really happened to Emily?